I'm Brett Smiley. I'm also a candidate for mayor this year, and I appreciate everyone taking the time to be here tonight. Because of all of the economic challenges in our city right now, many families are struggling to make ends meet. And one of the most significant economic challenges that I hear most regularly is about the cost of childcare. We saw, particularly through the pandemic, how critical childcare is to our economy. And we all talked a good talk about supporting frontline workers, and yet they bared a lot of the burden through the pandemic. I had the opportunity to serve as Governor Raimondo's Chief of Staff and the state's Director of Administration through the early days of the pandemic, and know how hard it was for our providers to continue to keep the economy going by caring for our kids. In addition to the challenges that the providers are experiencing, there's more and more families in Providence who don't qualify for the subsidies. They make some money, but not enough money to qualify for the subsidy, but not enough money to pay for childcare either, and so they're stuck in the middle. I think one of the most important changes that we can make, and one of my campaign platforms, is the expansion to free universal preschool, so that all 4- and 5-year-old kids can go to preschool for free, which has always been an equity issue between rich families and everyone else. My mother was a preschool teacher, and I understand the value of early childhood education that both impacts education, but also helps with the cost of childcare. When we make this change, however, and the Raimondo administration, when I was there, we made funding available for cities and towns to expand pre-K, so we don't have to pay for it all as taxpayers. But that's going to impact businesses like Emma's. And so for businesses like Emma's, we need to make sure that as we go to universal pre-K, we're also supporting a rate change so that our childcare providers can earn more for 0, 1, and 2-year-olds so that they stay in business, because it's critical that these businesses stay in business. They're our neighbors, but they also keep the economy going. Regarding the question on safety in our city, the last couple of years have been particularly violent in Providence. The proliferation of illegal guns, which is happening around the country, is happening right here in Providence also. I believe we need better and real community policing in Providence. And what community policing means is officers permanently assigned to a geographic area, or at least assigned for a period of time, so that neighbors can get to know their officers and so that officers can get to know the neighbors. And I would like to see the police department focus on violent crime and gun crimes, and on the quality of life crimes that are happening in our city, things like the ATVs and motorcycles. I strongly support the program underway right now, which is changing how we respond to 911 calls, because we know that not every 911 call needs an officer with a gun to respond. And when someone's experiencing a mental health crisis or a drug addiction crisis, by deploying social services and addiction services, it frees up officers to focus on violent crimes and gun crimes. And this is how we can start to rebuild the relationship with the police, through better relationship building, through engaged partnership in the community, and by a focus on violent crimes, and not by deploying an officer to every call. Finally, the housing situation in Providence is at a crisis. We need both more apartments that families can actually live in, and not just college students. And we also need home ownership opportunities. We still want to make it available so families can buy a home so that they can build wealth throughout the generation and either have something to retire on or something to leave to their children. I will work to access the funds that are available for things like down payment assistance and mortgage assistance to make sure that families in Providence can afford to buy a home and compete in the current housing market. Similar to the conversation about childcare, on housing, we have a very similar problem with families who make too much money to qualify for subsidized housing, but not enough money to actually pay the rent. These subsidy programs are either state or federal government programs, but the mayor has influence at the State House, and I will try to change the eligibility criteria so those who are working but making too much for the subsidies can qualify for a second tier of lesser subsidy to help make ends meet in the rental market. I also would direct you to my website. I've got a lot more information online on these topics and on many others, The website is smileyformayor.com or smileyparaalcalde.com, and I encourage you to learn more about all of them. And I'm asking for your vote in the upcoming election. Election day is 5 weeks from today, or 5 weeks from yesterday. And if you're not yet registered to vote, you only have 4 days left to register. You need to be registered by August 14th. So please get registered, and I hope you'll consider giving me your vote in the upcoming election. Thank you very much.